And we have progress. We are in the north, and here lots of oil fields next to the northern coast. I love flying in with a glider, jumping off the cliff from the western side of the eastern forest. By the way, I noticed that many times in the videos before I mixed up west and east. Oh boy, I apologize for that. But anyway, you can see by the pictures where I am, and I really enjoy gliding in here into the northern coast area. I think it's one of the most beautiful parts of the map. I mean, look at all these details. It's so lovely. Lovely, lovely mapped. With lots of verticality in it, so we can really nicely explore, and so many power slugs to find in this area. It is fantastic. And the most beautiful thing is the animals here are not too strong. So just with a Xenobasher I do have actually a chance to survive. Of course at night I have to be a bit more careful, there's some nasty spiders around. But at daytime it's quite alright. Yep, there's oil. And I'm going for all that oil. Up the hill, so the first one was down the coast. And in this valley we find 2 more oil sources. Since I'm still at MK1 level, I need per oil source 1 pipe to go to my plant area. Because the MK1 pipes don't have enough throughput to deal with more. So easy to combine, and you notice immediately, I love the curvy feature that came in Satisfactory version 1.1 for pipes and for conveyors. Because it gives me a chance to loop my pipes and conveyors, if I do it on the outside, around existing trees and bushes. So I don't need to flatten more of the vegetation than absolutely necessary, which I think is quite lovely. I prepped already the platform for the upcoming turbofuel plant, and here we have, following the concept of the water towers, the output for the oil, for the crude oil, a bit higher. And in the background we see what we have talked about already in the last episodes. One of the first coal plants are made on the left, and here's a little platform coming in which I want to use then to create some compacted coal. And behind that we have seen the area from the last video where I worked on the SAM. So now I'm doing the milestone, the essential milestone, to get my generators, because moving from standard coal generators to oil generators is a big step forward if it comes to energy production. And the beautiful thing on the area where I'm here, I will be able to go for turbofuel because there is some sulfur and coal around, which comes very handy.
Your research into this element was valuable. In fact, you in particular are my most valuable pioneer, but don't tell the others I
Ada
said
truly
that.
loves
It would
us
be
all.
bad for morale.
And now I'm going for compacted coal. Hey, job done. Next level then is turbofuel, that's what I really want to go for. But for that I will need some standard fuel first. So I have to go in little steps here, because my deliveries that I have, they do require now some standard fuel, even if I want to go later on here for turbofuel. So quickly just 2 refineries and 1 refinery for the fuel. And with that I get my packaged fuel, can hit the milestone for turbofuel, pimp a little bit with overclocking the refinery, the miner for sulfur. And to be honest, I had to activate a second one. If you go from the location where I'm building this plant for turbofuel, if you go to the south, where here stuff's coming in, there are two silver mines, one down the valley and behind that another one high up on the cliffside to the Red Forest. Getting it down from the cliffside from Red Forest, a bit of a tricky one, plus there are quite some nasty animals on the top of that hillside, but it's necessary to get enough sulfur in. So I had to do a bit more here, building a nice bridge to get it into the production area. And that is where I want to produce my compacted coal, because we're here directly next to some coal sources. So that shouts for building here the compacted coal, which will then transfer via a little loading bridge into the plant. And that progressed already quite nicely by having set up now my turbo fuel refineries and my generators. And you see for the pipes, I always loved to do big ovals for the pipes. On one side the input, on the other side the outputs. And sometimes a little bridging connection in between. You will see it with the yellow one even better. There in the center I put a mid connection in, slightly off because the output is slightly off from the input. And if you do such an overflow with a little interruption in between, then it's a way better chance to feed the source, the consuming refineries in a better way. Here are refineries for the purpose of plastic and rubber production. And with that, I have all my turbo fuel stuff together, which is very nice, because it gives me now the chance to build a jetpack that consumes turbo fuel. I mean, the glider is quite nice, so this parachute that you use to go around. It's quite nice for the beginning, but going with the jetpack and having turbo fuel in it is much more lovely, especially if you want to get up on larger distances fast. And here we have the first use case. I can't get up there with a glider, at least I couldn't. But with a turbo fuel jetpack, no problem, I can pick up the Merthosphere. And that leads me directly to the next big project. Because now I reached the necessary milestone to start to implement dimensional depots. That means why dimensional depots? You will know it already when you played it. I have finally the chance to get all my material on the hand, wherever I am, to do my building exercise. I don't need to run for every single piece back to the startup factory, load myself, running back to where I want to build it many times, forth and back, which is sometimes a bit exhausting. But in that context, I must praise again this big beautiful belt I've done here, because slide jumping on these roads is quite fast actually. I think it can even compete with a Hyperloop pipe. So it's really fast to do the slide jumping. And it's fun then to run over the conveyors, get a bit of extra speed by doing slide jumps from that conveyor. Here's the area where I do the compacted coal, and I'm flying in now into my area where I have the refineries for my turbo fuel. And there's also a packager, because of course I need to package my turbo fuel, but I want to have it now always on the hand when I'm exploring. So here I add now my dimensional portal, quickly connect it with the container below, and ka-ching, done. Giving a bit of a nice color, because I like to do some color coding that makes it more understandable what I have built when I try to understand why do I have here these pipes. If pipes are a bit colored, like red for turbo fuel and yellow for standard fuel, blue for water, it's much easier to understand what I have done. And sometimes I like to do the same even with the containers and with the conveyor belts, just to ensure it's quickly easy to see what the stuff is about. Yeah, overall very nice now. I have quite some energy gain here, So having that as an early stage of the game is really, really nice. I'm quite happy with the output. Gives me a bit of air to breathe if it comes to further building activities. And just to be honest, I did the facade way later in my playthrough, so I'm skipping here a little bit out of sequence just to give an impression of what it is. Because I built the facade later because I knew I have some further changes here. But the end result then is quite alright. Again, I'm not using any additional lighting here because I'm having quite average PC. There is no high-end graphic card, so it's all quite average. And I don't want to push it too hard because more buildings are coming. So I don't see the value there of indoor lighting when most of the time I'm outdoor anyway. Yeah, and then I like to give the industrial building a little bit of a turbo fuel flavor by red and yellow, of course. These are good colors. Very flat facade, like industrial buildings are. And with that, I have my turbo fuel plant up and running and lots of energy. How good is that? See you next time.